this is going to sound like I'm complaining, but I swear I'm not. It's more expounding on a type of story that I think we've been overlooking. I'm going to blow your mind and point out that there are a lot of dystopian novels out there right now. I know most of you probably haven't noticed. Pilgrim's Pass, a YouTuber that I follow, put out a video on the 4 types of dystopia that you should all watch because it's really interesting. I'll put the link in the description, but the general idea is that there are 4 types of dystopia because there are 4 ruling classes in every society: the military, the bureaucracy, the clerisy, and the merchants. The military are in charge of protecting everyone from physical threats, foreign and domestic. The bureaucracy creates the rules that help manage society. The clerisy is behind determining a society's morals, and the merchants control our money and transactions and supplies. A harmonious society is when those 4 are all working together and keeping each other in check. The 4 different dystopias are created by one of those classes becoming too powerful and controlling everything rather than the 4 different classes staying in their own lanes. I think the main draw of a dystopian story is following someone as they realize that things are wrong and then they start to fight against the system. This is because we all kind of inherently know that there's something wrong with the world and we want to fix it. But the problem is we rarely like the ending. Dystopians have one of 2 endings generally: depressing and unbelievable. The depressing ones are your Orwellian dystopias. The governing body wins, the hero gives up, or he's killed, and nothing comes of it as the society continues to chug along, and they're just an anomaly that history will forget as soon as time passes, if they haven't already been forgotten. They can also be really depressing because they only kind of win. The rulers are overthrown, but the new guys come in, and they're just as bad. So was anything really accomplished? The unbelievable ones are the ones where things are just a little too clean. Kind of like a lot of people's complain about the end of Return of the Jedi. Yeah, the Emperor's dead, but the Empire is still there. There might be a power struggle within it that the rebellion can, take advantage of, but they still have a long fight ahead of them. Whenever you have a really powerful government, just destroying the leader isn't going to make much of a difference. Now, I understand from a narrative perspective why this is how it goes. This is the end of the exciting part of the story. It feels victorious, and the actual dismantling and rebuilding of the government would be really dull to watch or read about, and it would also be a very different story from the one that you had been watching or reading about. But even great storytellers really don't have a choice in these being the options. Stories reflect life. These stories are always about revolution, overthrowing the government, and there has never in the history of the world been a successful revolution. By successful, I mean overthrowing the government, taking it over, and rebuilding it with more freedom than there was before. So if it hasn't happened, how can there be a believable way of telling a story about it? Because of this, I think we should try to stop or slow down telling revolution stories. We should be telling rebellion stories instead. In the classic dystopian stories, one of the only ones with a hopeful ending is Fahrenheit 451, because it wasn't a revolution story. It was the beginning of a rebuilding. Montag is leaving his messed up country and finding a new place to live, setting up a counter-state, rebelling. That is the difference and why I think that the American Revolution could be considered a success. It wasn't a revolution, it was a rebellion. The British even called them the rebels. It was revolutionary in their reasons and their goals, but in action, it was a rebellion. The British government was a little embarrassed at the end, but it still very much so existed. The British people were still under their control, as were India, West Africa, Australia, and Canada. A big perk is rebellion stories can have much more believable, happy endings because there is a much simpler goal. You are in an area ruled by an oppressive government, but your goal isn't to overthrow the oppressive government. Your goal is just to kick them out of your area. It might be short-lived, it might not be a long-term solution, but what happens next wasn't the point. You succeeded at your goal. It's America breaking free of British control. Various edges of the Roman Empire managing to break free, however temporarily. Britain finally breaking free of Normandy. The Allies getting the Germans out of France. Yeah, there might be some vagaries about the permanence of the victory, but when the battle is won, the battle is won. And it's satisfying, and it's the end. So I'd kind of like to see a dystopian story where the heroes don't topple the government, they just expel it. In the Hunger Games, what if instead of being about taking over the capital, It was about District 13 becoming free of it. Then they could help other districts do the same in sequels, and their influence could spread until the capital is all by itself, weak and poor and begging to be assimilated. I haven't finished Red Rising, but I'll bet it's the same thing. Overthrow the government. But why not have a story about just Mars gaining its independence? If I'm wrong, please don't tell me. I don't want it spoiled. I understand why we want the story to go big with the overthrow. The dystopian government is bad. It needs to be gotten rid of. Its leaders need to pay. Millions are under its boot that need to be freed. And that is a fair desire. That would be justice. But sometimes you can't save everyone. Sometimes it's enough that you saved a small group, and you can be a safe haven from those that want out. The rebellion ending might be bittersweet most of the time, but I prefer it over open-ended, unbelievable, or depressing. I have a lot of issues with Atlas Shrugged, but it does one interesting thing from a storytelling perspective. Dystopia is not sustainable, and it'll eventually collapse. And the concept of those that see the system as broken just leaving and letting it burn itself to the ground while they prosper in freedom isn't terrible. The story comes in, how do you break free? So if there are any aspiring writers listening to me, consider doing this. It would give you a leg up on the competition, a new story to tell in a popular genre with a good ending. You're welcome. You'll see me next time if you subscribe. Bye.